Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today I'm starting something a little bit different. As many of you may remember if you've been watching for a few months at this point, back in like late November, I started this little trend here on the channel of every once in a while making like a personal type video, right? Where instead of, talking about whatever internet drama is going on or whatever story is in the news or whatever, right? Instead, I would kind of just self-reflect a little bit and talk to you guys a little bit more on a personal scale, right? Talk to you guys about the things, that might be happening in my personal life or the conflicts in my life or whatever that I'm personally going through, right? And, it was received pretty well. I definitely was pretty surprised by it, right? Because most of the time, especially like a channel like mine, you got people that have been watching for years, people have just been just now starting to watch or whatever, right? And, they are used to the kind of content you put out just being whatever is like trending at the moment or whatever. And then to kind of just switch it up and throw a curveball to the system like that. And then for people to kind of like really support it was pretty cool, right? Like it was definitely something that I could pursue outside of just doing like the normal videos that I do here. And I think I'm going to do it, man. I'm going to call this series The Real Opti. So this is the first episode of The Real Opti, right? Where I'm just going to talk about whatever it is that I'm going through right now, just talking about, whatever challenges that I'm trying to conquer and just trying to, figure things out a little bit, right? Just talk about things and just kind of level with you guys, right? Because a lot of the times I feel like people forget. Like at the end of the day, man, like online I'm Optimus and whatever, right? I'm this person that's been making YouTube videos for all these years, but in real life, I'm me. I'm a completely different persona, Well, I shouldn't say that because like my persona online is really based on like how I think about things and like how I react to things, but like, people don't know me as Optimus as much in real life, right? They know me as me. And I kind of want to just blend those worlds a little bit, right? And just kind of, show you guys that personal side of me. So in today's video, the first episode of The Real Opti, I want to talk about complacency, being afraid of change, being afraid of taking risks, and how that mentality has held me back now for honestly, God knows how long. And I feel like this is something that a lot of people can relate to, right? Because in my personal life, I know tons of complacent people. I know tons of people who, they get comfortable in their habits and in their routines. And then they never really grow and develop as people beyond that because instead of, taking the time to self-reflect, realize maybe some faults or some mistakes that they're making along the way, they just kind of get in that rut where everything's comfortable for them, right? Maybe they get a job that they're really comfortable with. They get themselves into a relationship, get themselves into a place like a house or an apartment that they're really comfortable in. And what that ends up doing is it leads people down this path of complacency. Now, before we even go any further in this video, I want to clarify, right? Like if you're happy in life, right? You're happy with, and I want to preface this video with a little something, right? I'm not talking about the people who are happy in life, right? I'm not talking about the people who they got a relationship that they're happy with. They found that girl, or maybe they found that dream house and they got the mortgage on it and they're happy driving the car that they drive. I'm not talking about those types of people because in all reality, they've already got it figured out. They paved their own way. And not everybody has to be on this constant goose chase in life where, you feel like, you accomplish something and there's got to be something else to accomplish after that. People who are happy with where they're at right now that aren't necessarily the target of this video. But what I realized about myself for the longest time, right, is there was always something off about it, right? Over like the last, I don't know, probably since late 2020, right? I've been going off and on through this massive depressive phase in my life, right? And, I've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which makes it even worse, right? Because, if you have bipolar disorder, you might know, but, you're going through a depressive phase in life, you're not feeling like yourself, you're not feeling like you're doing what you need to be doing, and, that can last, right? And like I said, it's been going on since like 2020 for me, but the problem is, some days I wake up and I feel perfectly fine, some days I wake up and I feel like I'm in the worst position of my life. And so over the last few weeks, there's been some pretty major changes to my life. For instance, I moved and everything, got myself a new little place to stay at and whatnot. And I did that partially, not only because like I really liked the new place a lot more, right? Like this place I feel like is way better for me. I was able to get an office to actually work out of and everything by doing that. But I really did it because deep down inside, I felt like I needed to challenge myself. Because in the last few years of my life, I've gotten extremely complacent, right? And this is something that I've grown to realize. And as a young man, I feel like complacency, especially when you're not happy, is actually deadly. You can be in a position like me where you wake up and you feel like that one thing in life is missing. You don't know what it is. You don't know what the key to the whole thing is. You don't know what that last piece of the puzzle is. And you're really presented with two options. Either A, you can sit there, you can mope about it, you can be complacent about it, you can just figure out, well, I guess this is my life, I guess this is how it's just going to be forever. Or you can make changes to your lifestyle, to your habits, to your personality, to the outside, influences around you even, that can help lead you down a better path in life and help you figure that part of it out, right? And I didn't really consider option number two until very recently when I started doing a lot of soul searching. So last night I made a pretty major breakthrough for myself mentally, I feel like, right? I was sitting over on the other side of the office in the beanbag chair, and I was just looking out the window and I was smoking a raw cone, right? Like I had, a king size cone and I was smoking it, I was listening to music, right? And a lot of people say things like, oh, you shouldn't use marijuana to help you quote unquote cope and all these other things. Marijuana to me has been a massive boost in my life. And a lot of people, it's not the same way for them. I know a lot of my friends who used to smoke, they have like anxiety attacks and stuff now when they smoke. And I don't judge people for not using marijuana, but like for me personally, it's massively therapeutic. It helps me regulate my emotions a lot better. It helps me almost think in a clearer sense of my mind. I come up with a lot of my better ideas, especially with my job and YouTube and everything while I'm high. And like last night, I probably wouldn't have went down the thought path, I should say, that I went down had I not smoked. Well, anyway, that thought path, let's talk about that, because it was actually massively influential to my outlook on life. I was sitting there thinking like, honestly, I was feeling kind of bad for myself, oh man, a lot of the families died over the last few years, right? Like, oh, like that, it sucks. Like I'm never going to see these people again. Just thinking about like how much it hurts, right? And like that's not necessarily the part of like beating myself up that I'm really talking about, but I started kind of thinking like, man, why does this kind of stuff have to happen to me, right? Like, why does this happen to me? And then in that moment, I kind of had this awakening, right? Where I realized that a lot of my thought process in life leads me to a woe is me kind of mentality, right? Where, maybe something unfortunate happens, right? And instead of just realizing something unfortunate happened and not allowing that to affect my outlook on things, I have this problem where I've internalized a lot of these issues, and instead of actually self-reflecting on them in a healthy way, I use them as ways to basically justify how difficult my life is, if that makes sense. Now, of course, family passing away, it's an unfortunate inevitability in life. And of course, there's no perfect way to deal with it. People deal with these kinds of losses in all different types of ways. But what I realized for myself is that it's not healthy to sit around and just cope about these kinds of things by just being like, oh, why does it have to be so hard? Why can't life be easy? Because the truth of the matter is, life is not fucking easy. There is nothing easy about being alive, Even if you live in a privileged first world country like I've had the blessing of growing up in, life isn't always easy. There's always going to be struggles, there's always going to be losses, and there's always going to be problems that arise. Now, what I realized is I basically have got myself into this mindset of complacency by just coping through these things with this woe is me mentality. So, I'll wake up and, I won't feel the best, right? I'll be having a bad day from the jump. And instead of working to make the day better and trying to salvage what I can out of it, I have an unfortunate tendency that I'm working my way out of now, of just kind of giving up on the day. Something happened while I'm recording YouTube videos. Well, I can't record YouTube videos anymore because I just can't do it. And what I've realized is this has made me an extremely complacent person, which in all reality is nothing like the person that I used to be. Throughout my life growing up, there has been a lot of radical changes. You know what I mean? There's been a lot of personality affecting events that have unfolded. And I don't really want to divulge a lot of my personal family history on here, but I've lost a lot of people that I'm very close to. There was uncertainty in the home at home, things like that, right? So a lot of my life, I've realized that I've kind of developed this, adaptive mentality where based on the circumstances of how and where I grew up, I've been forced to adapt to a lot of new things, a lot. And over the last few years, mostly ever since this depressive episode, since late 2020, instead of being the person who adapts to situations and, intakes these new challenges and these new struggles and processes them and finds a way to move forward from them, I've become a complacent person. And instead of working my way through these things, I've more or less just grown accustomed to them happening and just rolling over and giving up. Now, the problem with that kind of mentality is it gets you absolutely nowhere in life. You never see anybody successful, anybody who's gotten truly past things like this, do so by sitting around and feeling bad for themselves and being complacent and not giving a shit about moving forward. So one thing I realized last night is, a lot of bad shit's happened. There's been things that are unfortunate. But the reality of it is you only get one shot. You know what I mean? We only get this one life unless you believe in reincarnation or whatnot. Personally, not my cup of tea, but you really only get one shot. And in reality, that one shot gets whittled down. You know, you get what, 75 years here on this planet on average, something like that. And I'm in my 20s, okay? Now, a lot of people spend their 20s, you know, going to college and partying and doing all this and having all this fun and whatnot. I didn't go down that road. I'm a college dropout. I dropped out to pursue YouTube. It worked out very successfully for me. And, you know, that kind of lifestyle that I live is definitely different than a lot of people my age. Now, is that a bad thing? No, not at all. You know, I'm perfectly happy with my lifestyle, but I've realized that there has to be some changes to it, you know? I have to stop rejecting the good new routines that I've found over the last few months, which one of which has been going to the gym. Instead of pushing these things away because they're different and I haven't necessarily done them for a good portion of my life, I've realized that I need to re-become the person who embraces change. I need to be, you know, that 14-year-old kid, right, who was low-key going through it. Nobody really knew about it, you know? People didn't know that I was depressed. People didn't know that I had shit going on, you know, in my family life, in my home life, any of those situations, right? But I need to become the kid again who is willing to actually move forward and adapt to new things in his life and actually set new good habits and new routines. Because over the last, I don't know, 2 years and some months, you know, 2 years and some change, I've developed into a very complacent person, and a woe is me mentality is not going to get me any further in life than where I'm at right now. And I feel like that's a lot of people's problem, right? You know, they just have that mentality of they don't care about going forward. They don't care about figuring it out, you know what I mean? And that's why you see people who are 45 years old, and the only thing they can really talk to you about is how they won the state championship in high school. And do I really want to sit around and be the guy who, you know, had whatever and then just got complacent and left it all behind? Absolutely not. But more importantly, the reason why it's important for me to get out of this complacent mentality and this complacent attitude that I've had in life over the last 2 or so years is because my entire future literally depends on it. You know, I'm at a crossroads in my life, and a lot of people go through these types of moments, you know, where you're presented with 2 or more paths, you know, in life. You know, you can go down this route here and it can end up all the way over here and doing this, right? Or you can take the right turn and go this way and it turns out doing this, or maybe there's even a middle path, right? It's never set in stone. But one thing I've realized about my life is, you know, I love doing YouTube, for instance. You know, this is fun to me. I intend on doing it for as long as I can, and it's a really good outlet for me. But also at the same time, you know, I'm not taking the opportunity to explore other things in my life too, right? Like, for instance, I've gotten complacent with my, you know, big hobby being YouTube. But at the same time, man, like, there's a lot of other things out there that really interest me that I need to get involved in. For instance, I love sports. So why am I not attending more sporting events? You know what I mean? So over the last, like, 4 or 5 months, I started going to NFL games, right? And I started actually, you know, watching football in person. And next year, well, not this year, I should say, but this year, you know, I want to go to an NBA game, maybe go to a baseball game, go to a hockey game, definitely want to go to a soccer game. Just kind of explore that hobby even more because it's completely different than just watching it on television and like on YouTube TV or whatever, right? And another thing, right? Like, I'm really, I didn't know, but I really like cars. Now, I'm not one of them car guys where I'm going to be, you know, jacking it up on the jack and, you know, messing with it and being a mechanic or whatever, but I really like fast cars. You know, I'm a really big fan of like the GT3 RS, the Porsche. That's my dream car. I definitely want to go get me a Porsche 911 someday. And I sat there and I thought to myself, for real, you know, how can you expect to be the dude driving a Porsche that your dream car, right? How can you expect to be that guy if you don't want to put your head down and work, right? You can't be complacent in life. And I guess that's where this is ultimately all wrapping back to. But I've realized, you know, like over the last 2 or so years, you know, I've made all kinds of excuses for myself, right? Oh, you're going through a depressive episode. Oh, you just don't feel like it today. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow. And at first, you know, it was me just coping with the fact that I was going through the largest depressive episode of my life. But, you know, you can go through those things and still see the light at the end of the tunnel. And if you're not willing to fight, you're not willing to actually put the time and dedication and effort into something, it's not going to lead to a good outcome for you. You can be the type of person who has a depressive phase like me, and you can sit there and have that woe is me mentality. And sure, it's hard to break out of. When you're going through something like that, a lot of people who've never gone through it don't realize, like it's very hard to not be complacent. But at the end of the day, I realize that's not getting me anywhere. And do I want this depressive phase to last forever? No, I don't. And what's going to end this depressive phase for me? Well, I started thinking about that a lot too, right? Because I started thinking about that complacency, and I realized too, a large part of the reason of why I got into that depressive phase of my life is, everything, there was a lot of stuff going wrong. The pandemic, family members passing away, toxic, personal connections with people around me, where maybe it was a one-sided friendship or something like that. And with all of these external factors weighing on my mind, I got to a point where I just started slipping through the cracks. I started giving myself excuses to not get up out of bed in the morning. And do I want to be another victim of depression and shit like that? Absolutely not. I'm going to fight it until, there's no fight left in me. That's the type of person I've always been. That's the type of person I strive to be. So from this day forward, man, like I want to look back at this video in 6 months, and I want to recognize a change in myself. I want to be a different person in 6 months. And I don't even necessarily want to be like my old self, right? Like I said, the kid who could fight through anything, the kid who dealt with adversity head on, right? Sure, I want there to be elements of that kid in me again, but the truth is I'm closing a chapter of my life that needs to be closed, right? Like I'm stepping into a new era of my life and a new phase of my life where, I get to determine the outcome. I get to be that person who decides whether or not I'm getting up out of bed in the morning. I get to be that person who decides, I gotta upload YouTube videos this week, or, decides, hey, I gotta get to the gym 5 days this week, right? That has to be me. That can't be anyone else. And then the reality of it is, it would be nice if we had somebody who could always tell us what we need to do and keep us on track, but that's not the way the world works. That's not the way, life is intended for us to go. You have to hold yourself accountable, and it's got to start for me today. And for a lot of you out there, it's got to start for you today too. But to circle back to complacency, right? Because I feel like, people are going to be like, oh, well, Optimus, you were depressed, man. Of course you were going to be complacent. You can't be too hard on yourself. The truth of the matter is, for me as a person, being hard on myself is what's gotten me this far. And, there's a lot of people out there, right? Like, they can't be hard on themselves. They can't sit there and think about what they did wrong or what is leading them on this bad path, right? But for me, if I don't hold myself accountable and I don't do it in healthy ways, it's going to lead to complacency, and it's going to lead me to be back in the same exact rut that I've been in for a long time. And do I really want that? Absolutely not. So as far as this goes for me, what does it mean to break out of this complacency bubble for me? Number one, I have to set healthy routines that are going to actually impact and benefit my life. I need to explore my hobbies. I need to keep myself accountable. I need to think more about the positives in my life. Because last night when I was sitting there smoking that joint across the room, right, just looking out the window, watching the cars pass by, it kind of made me think, man, like, you sit around and you think about the negatives, and you beat yourself up about the negatives, and you point this flaw out and that flaw out and this and that and all these other things. But when do you sit back and take the time to appreciate who you are as a person, Why are you allowing for this bubble of complacency to slowly destroy the person that you want to be inside? Why are you allowing external factors that in reality will not be problems to you in 3 to 6 months? Why are you allowing them to have so much influence on you mentally? And it really kind of awoken something in me, man. Like, I think it really kind of re-sparked that flame inside of me that's been dead for all this time, right? Like, I've hid this from the world that I've been going through something like this, right? Like, it's not easy to just come and tell people like, oh yeah, bro, I've been in like this really horrible depressive phase of my life since like September 2020. And like my closest friends know, because of all of the suicidality and all of the weak moments that I've had, not being able to hold myself up type shit. But they stuck with me through that for a reason. And these are people I went to middle school with. You don't find people like that very often. And I know I'm all over the place in this video, but I promise it'll all make sense in the end. But you don't find people like that very often, right? Like, you gotta, in a way, exploit that support system around you, man. Sometimes you gotta lean on your friends a little bit. And like, as a man, it's tough, right? Because the world conditions us like, oh, you can't show weakness. You can't show, other men that you're upset. You can't cry and all this other shit. But I promise you, bro, once you let that shit go and you just like talk to your friends friends about it and you like actually express the fact that you feel that way to somebody, it makes that shit 100 times easier to deal with, man. And like people don't realize it and people bottle that shit up and they get complacent and they allow this shit to eat away at them forever, you know, and they don't make changes to fix it and they don't care. And then you see people who are absolutely miserable with their lives by age 40. And in reality, age 40, that's like barely even the middle point of life, man. It's only halfway over and these people are ready for the casket. And I don't want that man to be me, bro. I've seen it do that to too many men in my life, right? Where they bottled it all up and they didn't fix the problems that they could have fixed in their early 20s. And it's led them on this path of complacency where they never went for their dreams. And, you know, they settled for whatever came along. And now they work 80 hours a week to try and pay the bills. And they hate their lives. They wake up every morning and just wish they'd fucking croak. I just want to be at a point where I can be happy, right? Because as a person, I deserve happiness. And as a person, you deserve happiness. Fuck all that other bullshit people talk about, man. Oh, you just gotta fucking deal with it, bro. Like, no, man. Sometimes you have to just sit down and self-reflect. You have to think about what's holding me back, you know? For me, that's complacency. Making excuses for myself, you know? Not putting in the effort where I need to put in the effort in multiple areas of my life. So one thing I've done recently to break that complacency, right, is I started making music again because I really enjoy music. I enjoy making music. You know, I'm not even talking about like the little Optimus shit, you know what I mean? Like the like joke raps and whatnot. I enjoy making beats. Like I like taking my MPC and like chopping samples up and making beats and stuff like that, man. Like that's fun to me. So like, you know, for a while I thought like, oh, I'll probably just never do music again, man, because like it didn't feel the same. But once I picked it back up over the last like week or so, and you know, I found a couple samples and I cut them up a couple different ways, right? And, you know, I'm sitting there tapping the pads and just kind of figuring it all out again, man. Like it really helped me in a way because I want to be that dude who has all these different hobbies, right? Like I'm trying to drive my car with my friends, you know, and like have fun like that. And then on top of that, man, I'm trying to make beats and I'm trying to make music and have fun through that. Then I'm trying to come on here on YouTube and talk to you guys at least like once or twice a day and just have fun doing that. And, you know, going to the gym and getting myself right and taking care of myself better. I need to set these healthy routines up in my life to keep me happy because in reality, you know, if I just sit here and I work real hard and I do this and I do that, and, you know, sure, that's great. You know, I might make a bunch of money or whatever, but I mean, at the end of the day, as a person, I'm gonna need more than that to be happy, right? Like I can't just depend on being like, oh, you know, I got, you know, all this money or whatever for being happy. Like I got to explore, you know, my hobbies and my interests that I don't monetize and like help figure myself out a little bit better just based off stuff like that, man. Because in reality, right, like, you know, I could sit here and be complacent just doing YouTube videos all day, but that's not what's going to make me happy. Like I got to have a life outside of YouTube and, you know, I could just go to the gym and be happy that way, but man, I got to do something other than lifting weights, right? Like it's a balance for me. And for that balance, right, I need to put in some work. I need to stop being that complacent person. So when I sat over there yesterday and I was watching everything out the window and I was smoking and everything, right, it really just kind of came to me that complacency shit just has to be dead. Because if, you know, I haven't been happy with the total outcome of life over like the last 2 or so years, right, is it really gonna get better if I just decide to not do anything about it? If I just sit around and do nothing all day, right? Is that really going to make me any happier? Is that going to make me feel any better? Absolutely not. So from this day forward, man, I got to hold myself more accountable. I got to explore all the things I want to explore. And that's another thing, exploring, right? Like I've been complacent just sitting here in Ohio, right? Over my entire life. You know, I've been to other places. I've been on vacations and stuff like that. But it's a whole world out there for me to see, right? And Ohio is definitely not the ends and edges of the world. And, you know, people are going to laugh like, oh, haha, you're from Ohio, you know what I mean? And that's funny and all, but sure, I've seen the cool stuff that Ohio has to offer. You know, I've been to Cleveland, I've been to Toledo, I've been to Cincinnati, I've been to Columbus, I've been to Dayton, I've been to Akron, I've been to all these places and like been to museums and sporting events and like all these different places, all these places of cultural significance here. But when am I going to see New York City at nighttime? When am I going to get to go to a game in Miami? You know what I mean? When am I going to get to, you know, eat some awesome food down in the South? Or when am I going to get to go to New Orleans or Houston or Dallas? Dallas or Denver or Seattle or Los Angeles or San Francisco. And that's just the United States. When am I going to get to see Milan? You know, when am I going to get to see Paris? When am I going to get to see London? You know, when am I going to get to see Nigeria? You know, when am I going to get to see Egypt? When am I going to get to see all these different places, right? So being complacent, just sitting my ass in Ohio is not working anymore, man. I got to go out and see shit before I'm done, right? Because, you know, I'm in my 20s now. I'm doing well for myself now. I kind of have it a little bit figured out in other elements, you know, like I got a pretty decent job through YouTube and everything, right? But in my 30s, you know, I might be raising kids and have a settled family. Like, it's harder to travel the world then, you know what I mean? It's harder to do things like that. You know, it's hard to be on a plane going to Italy with a 3-year-old child. Then in my 40s, man, you know, my body's not going to be the same as it used to be. You know, I'm going to be more tired, a little bit more achy. You know, I'm going to be that old man, right? You know, and I'm going to be sending my kids off to college or whatever at that point, graduating them through high school. And then in my 50s, you know, you can still travel the world and everything, but would I rather do it in my 20s with all of my friends and stuff while we, you know, are still building our lives together and then have those experiences to influence the rest of my life? Or would I rather do them on the tail end of everything when I've already done everything else? And then, you know, what next after that, right? I would rather do it now and show myself what I'm living for, man, because it's a world out there that I have not even gotten to touch down with yet, right? So I just wanted to make this video and just kind of talk about that because, I mean, it was a pretty transformative moment for me mentally, right? Because, you know, like I said, these last few years, I've kind of bounced in and out of this depressive phase, you know, go away for a few weeks or whatever, and then it would come back. And it just like, these types of things, you know, happen off camera, off microphone, whatever you want to call it, right? And people don't really realize that. But today has to spark a change, man. You know, I got to start doing something about it, right? Like, I got to start having fun. I got to start figuring out these routines. I got to stop being complacent with being upset in my life and just fucking off and doing nothing with myself, man, because I know I'm better than that and I deserve better than that. So with that being said, man, I appreciate it. If you're even still on this part of the video, man, it's 26 minutes in, damn. I definitely did not expect to make no damn near 30-minute video today about this, but, you know, I'm really glad I did because I feel like it really came out to make a good video. So with that being said, though, thank you guys for watching. I'm not even gonna, like, do the normal outro. My voice is starting to give out a little bit. I'm not even gonna lie. That's kind of weird. I'm not sick or nothing, so, but anyway, hope y'all enjoyed the video, man. If you're still sticking around, appreciate you. Love you to death, man. I love every single one of you. You guys have helped transform my life way more than you guys know. And even having the opportunity right now, we are all blessed to be sitting here right now in the modern day 2023, all here together. No matter what we're going through in life, no matter what struggles we're facing, no matter, you know, how you feel about the world around you, man, be blessed that you woke up to live another day today. And with that being said, make the most of it. Thank you guys for watching. Love you all. This is Optimus, signing out.